Here's something that almost everyone who has ever been in serious debt has felt at some point. The sense that they're working as hard as they can and the balance isn't moving. They're making payments, they're watching their spending, they're not going out or buying new things, and somehow the number on the statement barely changes. This feeling is not a character flaw, it's math. And once you understand the math, the whole thing makes a different kind of sense. Let's start with a real example. You have $10,000 on a credit card charging 22% interest. The minimum payment is around $200 a month. You pay it every month without missing one. You're doing everything they asked. After 12 months, you've paid $2,400, but your balance has barely moved. Here's why. Of that $2,400, roughly $2,100 went to interest. Only about $300 knocked down the actual debt. You spent a year making payments and the balance dropped by $300. Here's the thing, the minimum payment is not designed to help you pay off the debt. It's designed to keep you current while the lender collects interest. If you do the math on a $10,000 balance at 22% with only the minimum payment, it takes more than 30 years to pay off. And you'll pay over $25,000 in total on a $10,000 debt. That's not a glitch, that's the business model. And by the way, if you're looking for a lower rate option to start making a real dent in what you know, lowercreditfinance.com connects people with lenders who work with less than perfect credit. You can check out the link in the description. Now, the math alone doesn't explain why the trap is so hard to escape. There's another layer. It's about how debt interacts with income. Wages for most American workers haven't grown meaningfully after inflation since the late 1970s. At the same time, housing costs have more than doubled in real terms. Healthcare spending has tripled. Childcare has gotten dramatically more expensive. Every dollar that goes to housing, food, insurance, and transportation is a dollar that can't go towards debt. So here's what actually happens. You're carrying $10,000 in credit card debt. You're also paying rent that takes 40% of your income. You're also one car repair away from another emergency. You make your minimum payment. Then the transmission goes. You put $800 on the card. The balance goes up, back where you started, except it's been 3 months. This is the cycle. It's not that people aren't trying, it's that the floor they're working from doesn't leave room for progress. Any surplus from a good week gets absorbed by the next emergency. And there's always a next emergency when you're living close to the edge. What makes it even harder is what happens inside your brain when you're under this kind of financial pressure. And this is something researchers have documented quite specifically. A series of studies from Harvard and Princeton University found that financial worry occupies cognitive bandwidth the same way a task does. So when you're thinking about money problems, you have less mental capacity left over for everything else. Decision-making gets worse. Impulse control gets harder. Long-term planning becomes difficult. In other words, the state of being in debt makes it harder to make the smart decisions that would help you get out of it. It's a cruel feedback loop. The worse things get, the harder it is to think clearly enough to make them better. There is a term for the behavior this produces: financial avoidance. You stop opening the statements. You set up auto-pay for the minimum so you don't have to look at it. You tell yourself you'll deal with it when things settle down. And in the meantime, the balance keeps growing quietly in the background and you've lost track of exactly how much you owe. One thing that can help is to get a loan with better terms than your current high-rate debt. If that's interesting to you, lowcreditfinance.com is worth checking out. They work with people across a range of credit situations. Check out the link in the description below. Now, there's also the access problem, which is the most structurally unfair part of this whole situation. The obvious solution to high-interest credit card debt is to consolidate it into a lower-rate loan. Move the $10,000 from 22% to 8%. Your monthly payment stays similar, but almost all of it now goes to principal. You'd pay off the debt in 2 years instead of 30. But to qualify for a consolidation loan at a low interest rate, you typically need decent credit. But the debt that you're trying to escape is damaging your credit. so you can't qualify for the product that would help you escape it. The people who most need affordable credit are precisely the ones who can't get it. The people who need it least get the best rates. It's not an accident, that's how the system works. Now, there are some things that actually break the cycle, and not all of them require good credit. The first is a buffer. Even $500 to $1,000 in savings changes the math dramatically. The next car repair doesn't go on the card. The next unexpected expense doesn't add to the balance. The cycle depends on you having no cushion. A cushion breaks the cycle. Now, the second is attacking one debt at a time. Pick the one with the highest interest rate and put every extra dollar toward it. Keep paying minimums on everything else. When that balance hits zero, take the full payment you were making on it and add it to the next one. The momentum accelerates over time. This is what financial planners call the avalanche method, and it saves more money than any other payoff approach. The third is finding a way to grow your income, not just cut expenses. Expenses have floors. Income has no ceiling. Skills that increase your earning power, a second source of income, negotiating a raise, switching to a higher-paying employer. These move the math in a way that cutting subscriptions never will. And if consolidation might make sense for your situation, lowercreditfinance.com is a starting point for finding options even when your credit isn't perfect. The link is below. The system was not built to make it easy for people with less money to get out of debt. It was built to profit from them staying in debt. But understanding exactly how it works is the first step to navigating around it.